Santa Clarita Valley. I'm here in the studio with State Assemblyman Scott Wilk, represents the 38th District, and he is going to be seeking the 21st State Senate District seat in November. He just won the June primary. Congratulations on that, Scott.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming in the studio. Want to talk to you. It's been... probably been kind of a rough week. I know Sharon Runner, you were close to her.
Yes.
And the Runner family, and obviously we lost Sharon last week. She passed away after complications from respiratory illness, my understanding, and she's been battling that for a while. But I thought, first off, I know that you know them well. Talk to us a little bit about the Runners and their legacy and her legacy, and
So I was born and raised in Lancaster, and I actually grew up around the corner from George Runner. He's 6 years older than me, but he knew his family. His father actually worked with my father in aerospace. When you're a little kid, 6 years is a long, it's a different generation. But I was close to his sisters, particularly Susie, his youngest, and so known the Runner family for almost as long as I can remember. And then Sharon, I've known Sharon, probably 30 years. Always just full of grace, all the time. And I obviously dealt with her a lot in politics, and politics can be rough and tumble. I never heard her say an ill thing about anyone. She's been struggling with this disease for a long time, and even then when she would be in pain, she wouldn't tell you. And it's really, I think it's a sad loss to our community and to the state, because I think she was an incredible legislator. But just, mine and Vanessa's heart just kind of ache, because it happens so quick.
And so young. 62 is so young.
62 is really young, and just, so quickly.
For people who don't know and maybe are new to the area, don't understand the legacy, because what they were able to do as far as being the first husband and wife team, that's pretty amazing. But talk about like Jessica's Law and some of the contributions they made legislatively.
Yeah, and they both of them are very powerful advocates when it comes to public safety, and she also was working in the realm of children, whether it was education or just protecting them. There was something that was really that she carried in her heart. And it's interesting to me, because they are the first husband and wife team to be elected at the same time.
Right.
We now have a second one, Ted and Beth Gaines from Northern California, and they didn't always agree on votes.
Do we have some good? Are you going to give me a good story?
No, I don't know one. I know Sharon and I, since she's come in and talked. She came to me on the floor a couple times and didn't like a couple of my votes. So
she wasn't afraid to let you know.
No, she was not afraid to let me know. But for me, and to me, why they're such a dynamic duo from my perspective is that, George is somebody that, I've tried to emulate. I think he's been, holds conservative ideals, but was still able to be effective in the legislature. And I think that I've accomplished that as well. But he leads with his head, and she really leads with her heart. And so together, when you get the head and the heart as one, it's just really powerful. And it's just devastating.
And when you're talking about people like the Runners and yourself who try to champion the conservative values in a predominantly, obviously, liberal legislature, what are some of the challenges, and then how do you work around that, and how do you gain that support and get those important pieces of legislation passed, like they've been able to, and yourself have been able to do?
Well, and in a perfect world, there would be a lot of things I would like to get past that it's just not doable. Unfortunately, up there, you've got a mindset that you got these group of legislators. They view themselves as a political elite. They still think that we live in an industrialized economy, which we don't. They believe in command and control, and that all the decision making should be made in Sacramento by them, and that's it's harmful. I think it's hurt our educational system. It certainly hurt our economy. By their high taxes and their overregulation, they killed the entrepreneurial spirit in the womb, and they pick winners and losers in the marketplace. And I don't think we should be doing that. I think we should be creating an environment where entrepreneurs are willing to risk their capital to go out and create wealth. But you look at today's economy, and it's no longer industrial, right? It's really information age economy. So case example, the largest hotel chain in the world is Airbnb. and they don't own a single property.
No real estate, right?
Right. Who's the largest taxi cab company in the world? Uber. And they don't own a single vehicle.
Interesting.
And so we have to allow that. We need to create an environment that fosters innovation, and we don't do that, and it's unfortunate.
One thing that you've been championing since day one is the fight against the high-speed rail, and you're now starting to see at least some legislators walk sideways from it and kind of recognize this has been a very costly experiment that might not ever get built.
It's not going to get built.
Talk to me about where you're at on that, and that's I think one example of how again going against the grain. Finally, eventually, we've been able to see something there.
Right. So the high-speed rail, it was barely passed in 2008. It was Proposition 1A, and in there it had numerous guarantees, and I think that's one of the reasons why it passed. It was supposed to be a dedicated single system electrified, the fastest train in the world. It was having a guaranteed travel time from San Francisco to LA of 2 hours and 40 minutes. It was allegedly supposed to cost $45 billion for a system that went from San Francisco to San Diego and then Sacramento tying into the Central Valley. And none of those things have come to fruition. I mean, right now the projected price tag is $68 billion, and that's only phase one, which is San Francisco to LA. It's now a blended system. It's no longer a single system electrified. According to the Reason Foundation, by their calculations, it could take as long as 4 hours and 10 minutes to get from San Francisco to LA. So are people going to ride it? Yeah, they're going to ride it one time to say that they rode it. And if you look at the ridership projections, I mean, they're not accurate. I mean, they project a higher level ridership in terms of aggregate numbers than Amtrak gets nationally.
What's troubling for me is what I read somewhere, that the cost is not going to be able to be cheaper than a plane ticket, which was the goal, without heavy subsidies and just a ridiculous.
Well, that's true. So again, it's guaranteed that it was going to be at least revenue neutral, which is right. It's not. And then in the initiative said it was going to be around $50. It said around. It was vague on there, but right now the projection is probably $81. And you're right. Every week I go up to Sacramento and I call it the Southwest Caucus. I drive down to Burbank and I'm on the flight with all these other legislators, and it's 55 minutes. So if we're going to make those kind of investments, I'm for that, because we need to have more transportation infrastructure. But let's do some public-private partnerships and let's invest in next generation technology. I mean, obviously, I think Hyperloop is something that obviously people believe is something that can happen. I mean, there's multiple people competing in that space now.
You put recently forth an effort to put some of that money towards education, I believe, was one of the.
So I've done,
I mean, I know you've been. There've been a few attempts, right?
I've done two different versions of the bill, and I do a lot of stuff that to help my district, and I push legislation for greater government transparency, because I think the more the transparent the government, the better democracy, the better policy we get. And then I do bills that I call one and done, just to be able to go out there and share my vision and have a conversation, knowing that I'm not going to get anywhere.
Right.
So currently, there's $8 billion there unspent. When the voters passed the initiative for high-speed rail, it was $9 billion, wow. About $1 billion of that for regional rail, which they've spent because legally they can, and then $8 billion, which is there unspent because they're out of compliance with the initiative, so they can't. So my first time I did a bill, it was to, again, allow the voters another bite at the apple, and if they said no, the money was going to be repurposed to school construction.
Oh, that's what it was, okay.
And I picked school construction for two reasons. Number one, I picked it because we have no money in the account right now for school construction. Yeah, because we haven't had a school bond since 2006, and according to the state allocation board, we have about $17 billion in need. So $8 billion obviously makes a difference, and these are all shovel-ready projects.
Right.
There's 116 school districts that have passed local bonds.
They've been
waiting for the match, and there's no match. And then the other thing is just to call out my friends on the other side of the aisle, because they love the children more than we do.
Again, it's about that conversation, though.
Yeah, and then this last year, it was the same concept, but the money was redirected to water capture, storage, and conveyance. because we're in a drought. We've been in drought conditions.
Priorities, right.
But we're in a drought because of past inaction from Sacramento.
What's been the difference? What's been the turning point? Do you think it's the realization of the price tag, or some of the unfulfilled promises, as far as the perception that I'm seeing, and I think that you know what I'm talking about as far as from high-speed rail?
Yeah. Well, so in Sacramento, on the Republican side of the aisle, everybody is universally opposed. On the Democratic side of the aisle, I would say a third of them are for it. A third of them, like, it'd be kind of cool, but we really can't afford it. And then there's a third that go, this is not a good idea. But they don't want to go up against Governor Brown. I mean, Governor Brown's the most powerful person up in Sacramento, and that's why I think it gets killed by the courts, or the next governor pulls the plug, because it just doesn't pencil out. If it penciled out, the private sector would be doing it.
Even if somebody like Newsom were elected, you still think it loses a lot of that support?
No, Newsom's already said we can't afford it.
Okay.
I mean, he's kind of, because now he's running for governor, he's kind of pulled, but he's on the record. He's on the record not supporting it. John Chung, who's our current state treasurer, I've not had a conversation with him, but and I know you've heard him speak a couple times, so you know how smart he is, and he's a numbers guy. I gotta believe he knows it's not sustainable.
Right.
So I'm highly confident.
It is interesting. He hasn't really been, as far as, he's a very fiscally sound, obviously very smart guy with the numbers, but I haven't heard him speak out a lot about it.
I haven't either. Well, maybe no one's asked him. And of course, you don't want to take on your incumbent governor.
Right.
So.
Well, we got to take a quick commercial break, Scott. We'll have you right back to talk about some of the issues for the 21st race that you're running in November, and we'll be right back on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I'm back Santa Clarita Valley. I'm KHTS News Director, and in the studio with me is our Assemblyman, Scott Wilk. State Senator hopeful Scott Wilk is running for the 21st District. Before we get back to our issue discussion, just wanted to let our listeners know that we do have a spot vegetation fire off of Sand Canyon Road near the 14. Fire officials are responding to that right now, and we'll keep you posted with developments as we get them. But the best place you can go for updates is to our Facebook page at KHTS AM 1220. So check back there. We are going to have some information posted as far as the response. And Scott, I wanted to talk to you about, speaking of fires, public safety, we were just saying is an issue. I don't know if it's a bigger issue in the Assembly than your Senate district, or what the changes and what the crossover is for district issues. But I know you know both those districts very well.
Right.
So talk to me about what.
Well, I think crime is always important to any community, because I think your community is only as good as safe as your neighborhood is.
Sure.
It's much more pronounced, I think, in this Senate seat. My Assembly seat goes from Santa Clarita, northwestern San Fernando Valley, so Granada Hills to Chatsworth, and then Simi Valley. This district goes from the Valencia Town Center Mall east to Lancaster, Palmdale, and then out to Victorville, Hesperia, Apple Valley, Adelanto.
Considerably more different socioeconomic areas.
Yeah, it's clearly not as affluent as the Assembly district that I represent. So, and there's definitely challenges there. The Antelope Valley and the Victor Valley don't get their fair share of funding from either LA County or San Bernardino County, which is challenges. So just off the top of my head. So on homeless funding, City of Lancaster, which has the second highest homeless population after LA in LA County, they receive from the county $247 per person. City of LA and Skid Row gets $4,500 a person.
Wow.
That's wrong. So yeah, absolutely crime. Proposition 47 that the voters passed, which made a lot of things that were felonies misdemeanors.
Now, you and Tom have been working on some legislation to address some of those loopholes for Proposition 47, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Talk to me a little bit about that. As far as with the crime, you were saying the differences in the public safety issues.
Yeah. Well, it's just again, with this Prop 47, basically it's now for police is catch and release, and so the concept of the proponents of Prop 47 is that it was going to reduce funding, it was going to reduce costs to the state, so that's money that could go into drug treatment and to services for these people. Here, there's two problems with it. One, these people are on drugs and they don't want help. And to fuel their drug habit, they're doing burglaries, which is way up. They're shoplifting to pay for it, and there's no consequence if they get caught. Because if they get caught, they get taken down to the police station, they get cited, and then they're released. Captain Johnson here has been strong advocate on having to, reform Prop 47. And then the other problem is, and we're not going to know if it works or not because Jerry Brown's keeping the money. So in the budget that we just passed, he said that the savings to the state was $30 million and that he was pushing down the $30 million to local governments to do health, do mental health services and all that. Well, the Legislative Analyst's Office, Mac Taylor, who you met on our KHTS trip,
right,
he issued a report saying it was $120 million. And I talked to him that night at our dinner, and he said, Scott, it really is more like $165 million.
Wow.
So, we're not going to know if the Prop 47 model works because it's not going to be funded. I mean, I don't think it's going to work anyway, but we're not going to know. And so, the price we're all paying is, higher crime.
We talked about, you mentioned the KHTS Sacramento road trip, and you've had people talking about everything from water to medical marijuana to, what are some of the other ballot issues that you see or upcoming election issues that you see for the voters that you think you'll be trying to get the message out for the race for the 21st district outside of public safety?
Well, my number one priority is Proposition 54, which is the Legislative Transparency Act. Because I will tell you, and I know you know this, but
tell for our voters, tell a little bit about what that's going to do.
Yeah, so too many deals are cut behind closed doors without any public scrutiny at all. So, our budget process, we pass out budget bills.
I've heard you talk
to
about
the other
blank
house
budget bills every year.
With nothing in them, and then the budget's negotiated, in private behind closed doors between the governor, the speaker of the assembly, and the Senate pro tem, and then under current rules. That has to be in print for 24 hours. So then they populate the bills, and then they move them with the hopes that no one reads it. So my first year in the legislature, we were debating the budget bill was AB 110. It was Friday, June 14th, because I remember because we're not normally in session on Friday, and we have a laptop computer. Each legislator does on his or her desk, and I pull up AB 110, and the computer screen says document not available. It was not even downloaded into the state computer system, which means no one read the budget. I mean, I was given a hard copy, but if you're a member of the public, you had no chance to weigh in.
Right.
So Proposition 54, require the budget to be in print for 3 days. Require all pieces of legislation to be in print for 3 days. We don't have time to go into it, but there's a little procedure they do called gut and amend, where they'll take bills that have gone through the whole session. It's like right up to the finish line, and then they completely gut them and they put in all new stuff.
Do-over.
Yeah, and the whole point of that is because they don't want public scrutiny of it.
Right.
And
avoiding that debate is the democratic process.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, to me, I get so frustrated because, above the dais in the state assembly is, it's a quote, it's a duty of the legislature to pass just laws. I think it's just as important that we pass them in a just manner. And too often we don't do that. So, we're coming into August. It's the final month of the 2-year session. And I'll be sitting there on the floor 10 hours a day that last week, and we're going to have a ton of gut and amends that will have no public scrutiny that I believe are going to be bad for Californians.
So Proposition 54, you're definitely in support of.
Yes.
So is there anything that voters should look out for as far as anything you're against that you want to warn people about? Because there's a lot of stuff on the ballot. I'm definitely, and I don't even know the bill, the prop number, but I'm definitely against the legalization of marijuana. Now, you brought forth a group that had, it seemed like they were working on what they were calling a sensible framework that was supported by some of the law enforcement chiefs.
Yeah, but that was for medical marijuana.
Right.
So
okay.
So in 1996, the voters passed, and I think I voted for it too. For medical marijuana, thinking, okay, there's people that got glaucoma, or there's people that got cancer that are in pain.
Right.
And so I thought, okay, well that's the right thing to do, and I'm pretty sure I voted for it. What I didn't know is there was no regulations behind that. So what's
no county ordinances,
there's
no framework.
Nothing, and so so people it's been kind of a sham in terms of anybody really. You can just there's mill houses that will issue a medical marijuana card, right? There's illegal grow places all the place. I mean, I was at Steve Arkland's ranch in Sand Canyon not too long ago, and he showed me a legal marijuana grow. You could see it from his property, and there's people out there with shotguns. So you could be wandering in the wrong place and get shot. Up in Northern California, like diversions of water to do these things.
Environmental impacts, of course.
So negative environmental impacts. So last year, year, bipartisan effort, and we brought everybody together. We brought the growers together, the distributors together, local city and counties, law enforcement, environmentalists, and we came up with a comprehensive package to put regulatory framework in place for medical marijuana. So that's great. The problem I have with the legalization of marijuana, people say, oh, the kids are going to get access to it. Let's be honest, the kids get access to it now. My concern is that there's no way to test if you're impaired. And so, so that's my concern, so whether you're operating heavy equipment, whether you're driving a motor vehicle, which if you're impaired, all of a sudden becomes a weapon.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of things that haven't been addressed. And so, I hope the voters, vote it down. We'll see. Looking at the early polling, it's one of those things that's going to be right on the cusp.
Right. And we'll clear this up for the voters. There's so many. It seems like there's several competing ballot measures as far as that goes. I think
on marijuana it ended up being, there were. I think it ended up going down to one.
Okay.
Yeah, I know we got 19 ballot measures on the ballot.
Yeah. So
one of the things I've got to do, I haven't done yet, is I got to read them all.
Yeah. Voter fatigue, right? I mean, is that a legitimate concern when you have important measures like for you, Proposition 54, and you know what I mean?
Well, 54 is at the top.
Right.
So I'm excited about that. Honestly, I think people don't give voters enough credit. I think most of the time they get it right.
Okay.
And, I'm not that concerned. One of the things that we put on the ballot is just an advisory vote on whether you support, the Supreme Court decision, Citizens United, which allows, corporations to compete in, with money in the federal election process. And when it came before, I was the only Republican on the Assembly side that voted for it, and I was like, why? Why can't we give people, a voice? And again, it's just advisory. It doesn't impact public policy at all. But it's just, I think it's a way for our California congressional delegation to know where their constituents stand. I don't see where that's harmful.
Awesome. Assemblyman Scott Wilk, thank you for coming down and talking to us. That's about all the time we have for today, but we will be putting this online and on our Facebook page so people can check it out. And good luck with your race in the 21st State Senate District.
All right, Perry, thanks for having me.
This is Perry Smith, KHTS News Director on your hometown station, AM 1220, KHTS.